So, if I had to name one of the speakers who was going to positively change our industry, I would say it's the next one. She is a dynamo, so cameraman beware. There will be walking. And also, I just really like it. So, we know that our jobs are going to be obsolete. We can see some jobs that look like in the next 20 years they're going to be gone. And we're even starting to see programs that write programs. And that's what we do. So maybe those will be gone in some time in the future. Or not maybe, they will be. But the question is when. But we've been through this kind of evolution before, of jobs disappearing, being mechanized, being replaced by machines. So we kind of want to know, like, how do we stay ahead of this? How can we, people who are happily employed in programming, stay employable? And I would like to have a guide, and I'd love for it to be our next speaker. So please welcome Kim Crayton to the stage.
I'm a black female. Y'all need to give it up for me. I mean, come on. I am Kim Crayton, and I am here to talk about Will You Survive the Robots? It's Professional Development 2.0. And some of you guys, there's some trigger warnings in here. I love that title. Just because I'm me. It's not like there's going to be anything flashing, but some people will be uncomfortable, and so what? Get used to it. That's just life. And we're just going to move forward with this. So, I am Kim Crayton. You can find me on Twitter at KimCrayton1. And I am actively #causing this scene. And so, that should be your first warning. All right? And so with that, I'm going to give my credentials. And the reason I give my credentials, and I may be the only person that does that, because I'm a black female, somebody's always going to say, so why should I be listening to her in tech? So I'm going to tell you why. All right. So I have over 25 years of working with learners of all ages, all abilities, in school, out of school, all kinds of stuff. I am trained in crisis intervention, mediation, all kinds of things. I have a master's in training and development, which means I write curriculums, I write workshops, I like my presentation. I can throw together my presentation in a minute. If my laptop goes down, which it may be, because it's pretty old, I just keep rolling until it comes back up. And that's how good I am. All right, I am getting almost done. I'll be done in August with a Doctorate of Business Administration, specializing in technology entrepreneurship. My doctoral study topic, and I want to tell you the difference between a PhD and a DBA. A PhD is someone who studies theories or creates theories. A DBA is somebody who takes those theories and puts them into practice. So I'm used to taking stuff and being practical about it. I don't want to be in my head all the time. I have the solutions I have, the strategies that I come up with are actually to your benefit or to the benefit of my clients. So my doctoral study topic is successful strategies for increasing organizational knowledge sharing through mentoring developers. All right, so I'm deep into this development stuff. And I'm also in the process of writing a book, How to Leverage Organizational Culture for Competitive Advantage. So for those who don't know me, I'm a big disruptor. I believe in disruption. It wasn't that I came into this space about disruption. I came into this space because I was always interested in tech. And I'm going to say this again, being a black female, not only am I underrepresented, which is about numbers, but I'm in a marginalized group, which is about treatment. I found that trying to fit myself into the same mold as you white men just does not work. It does not work for me. It does not work for me to be black. It sucks. It so sucks. It so sucks. And I said, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. Which meant I need to disrupt. And so for most people, when they talk about disruption, they talk about services and products. For me, because of my background, I'm about education and about learning and all these things is about changing your mindset. It's about changing how you approach problems, how you approach situations. And so, as we move towards more automation, machine learning and artificial intelligence, programmers, you guys, need to figure out ways to develop and leverage an essential yet often overlooked skill set. ... It's like, what could she mean? This is a post I did on Twitter because I'm always talking about innovation, disruption, what's coming, and also, again, being of a underrepresented and marginalized group, that people always put me in others. Well, fellow programmers, white men, white women, Indian, whatever, you're part of others when it comes to automation. Your jobs are at risk. What are you going to do about it? It doesn't feel good to be an other. So what you want to do is what I do is create my own space. Even with, so we know that the CEO of GitHub left. He is talking about he wants to talk about how to get non-coders to create products and services where they don't have to code. So people are already talking about this. So if you look at products like, and he's saying, why isn't it happening already in software development? So you're looking at a platform like Bubble, says right there, you don't need to be a coder. You tie that in with Zapier, and you're rocking and rolling without having done any coding, without knowing what a variable is, without knowing what a functional programming language is, without knowing what a semicolon is and getting caught up in JavaScript and dealing with syntax and all this other stuff. You can get rocking and rolling, and we already know about the value of WordPress. You can create, before I even got into tech, let me give you a bit of background. I knew I was more than the regular consumer of tech, but nobody in my space was telling me about being a producer of tech. So I never saw myself as a producer of tech. But I knew I had an interest more than being a consumer of tech, because I watched the Apple keynote not for the products, but why they did certain things, answering certain questions. So when I wanted to build a business, I went on YouTube, Googled how to build a website, and I followed YouTube videos on WordPress, and they turned out to be damn good. And I was like, all right, great. And so I didn't know a thing about code. And so it's like, so how do you compete? How do you compete? There is only, this is where the business part of me comes in. There are only two effective ways to compete, either on price or on differentiation. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, they're going to beat you on price. There's no way in hell you're going to outbeat a machine that can work 24 hours, 7 days a week without taking a break. So as programmers, you must master differentiation. But you have a problem. Whether you're working in an enterprise company or a one-man show or you're a multi-person team, you need to start now thinking about identifying and marketing those points of differentiation that you have. So if you're that coder that sits in a corner with their headphones on and not wanting to engage with anybody, you have nothing to differentiate yourself from. You're going to be competing on price, and you're going to lose that game. As programmers, you must develop a new skill set. Might not be new, but a different skill set beyond programming to remain relevant, because this is an information economy. Before, we had an industrial economy where it was about what you could do. Now it's about what you know, so you need to have human-centric skills. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a person who's only been in this space for almost 4 years and have actively recruited, encouraged people to come into these spaces, your human-centric skills suck. Oh, they suck so bad. Oh my word. But what happens is you use that as a checkbox You say, oh, we brought them in, but they left. Because your skills sucked. Your culture sucked so bad. You didn't have any, you had no idea how to do mentoring. Oh my God, you sucked. Oh. But it's their fault, so we checked that box, we brought them in. That's no longer gonna work. So Google did a survey, and I've been talking about this for years. And to their surprise, STEM expertise was dead last when they were looking at the skills that were what's the term they used? Fire hiring, whatever. Next slide. So they basically were saying that stem cells, Lord have mercy, what is going on? We're not doing stem cells here. So they were saying STEM expertise, the science and technology, engineering, and mathematics skills were at the bottom of the list of the most important skills. And they shocked them. They just knew. Because, you know, these two geeks, tech guys, these two coding guys, just knew that they were being progressive and innovative because they had great programmers. Because you know at Google, all they want to talk about when you come in for an interview, speaking to what you were saying earlier, talking about where are you going to school, can you do this whiteboard, blah, 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 blah. Does not matter. That's the bottom. And so what they're saying is the skills that you need are, and we'll talk about this later, but I do not like the term soft skills. Especially since most of you don't have them, it's going to be hard skills. so these skills of being able to be coached, communicating, listening, processing insight, all those things were more important than you being able to go to the keyboard and code. And this is, I don't know how many alpha males are in here, but you know how you get a whole team of alpha males and they start beating their chests and stuff like that. Although you are productive, you're not the most productive teams in Google. The most productive teams in Google are people who people don't think are that smart. Which is another thing that we have how we define what's smart in this space defies me. We need to change that. So they're saying, and we see this, it has to be, this soft skills term, quality, generosity, curiosity, team empathy, emotional intelligence, and emotional safety. There is not a lot of emotional safety in this space. At all. It's very hard to have challenging conversations with people without people getting defensive or emotional about it. And that's one reason I do hashtag cause a scene, because I'll just throw stuff out on Twitter. I know it's about to blow up some stuff. I don't care. We need to talk about it. We need to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because we're never moved to the next side of this thing until we move through these things. But there's something that's missing. This whole hard skills is technical and soft skills is non-technical. If I have to fill out one more CFP to ask me, is this a technical or non-technical talk, I'm gonna scream. Although the studies show that business success requires a set of skills beyond programming, they don't address these things, the major barrier, and which is that we'll never change tech until we change these terms we have. So soft skill equals non-technical and not valued. When it comes to programming, considering if programming is the only thing we consider as technical, what happens is soft skills are just that thing, well, oh, that's a nice to have. And it's damaging the health of our communities. I look at open source projects, and I'm just like, oh my God, their community so sucks. They don't even know how to talk to each other. They don't know that this is a platform where there is a lot of nuances that are missing because you don't have the person in front of you, you don't have tonation, and all these things, and just how stuff just blows up or just gets misinterpreted, or these things are damaging our communities. I did 2 keynotes at a No conferences last year. I accepted right before No blew up on Twitter last year. And I actually had to call them and say, hey, am I going to be safe? Because I've never seen such hate and vile stuff coming out of Reddit, and I don't hang out in those spaces. So it was like, oh my God, what are they? These people are just, this is a technology. Why are we acting like somebody threw a baby out the window? People get really serious about these things. And it's damaging our communities. And it's damaging our ability to bring in underrepresented and marginalized community members in. And I'm going to keep harping on that because white men, you cannot create products and services for a global market from your perspective alone. It's not going to happen. It's going to start hitting you on your bottom line. So non-technical content does not hold the same value as I said. And so it's that rather, it's nice to have, but it's not a must-have. And that's a problem. And due to the current, we devalue it so much that, as was talked about in the opening presentation, no one's talking about ethics. No one's talking about how to help someone develop these skills that I will be talking about. Beyond programming. All we focus on in CS programs and other STEM education, boot camps, all these things, is learning this thing. We don't talk about the nuances of this thing has to affect humans. And so this is what we're experiencing in our organizations and communities right now. So I want to I'm a big person, I'm a researcher. So I'm a big person, I will define something in Google in a minute, because I feel that if everybody understands what this term is together, then there's no reason and no opportunity to say, oh, I didn't understand. That didn't make sense to me. I had a different definition. So we're gonna clear all that up. So for me, not even for me, technical means relating to a particular subject. That's all technical is. Programming, is a technology. It's a machinery equipment. We need to be careful of our terms. So the fact that I'm going to be, you call it arrogant, I don't care. I'm very good at what I do. I have been able to de-escalate certain things. I've been able to negotiate certain relationships. I've been able to do a whole bunch of things that a lot of you in this room will find very uncomfortable, because they were uncomfortable for me, but I had the skill set to do them, which meant that was technical expertise. Now, the thing that I may have been using, if it were a game, or if it were email, or Slack, or an approach, that would be considered the technology that I was using to solve that technical problem. April Wenzel recently said emotional intelligence, she was talking about emotional intelligence and saying, let's replace the term soft skills with catalytic skills. Dr. Kaku was talking about your goal should be to become an intellectual capitalist. Being that person with the skill set that cannot be easily replaced by robots, AI, and machine learning. And this morning, at scale, all problems become people problems. This is what we need to remember. This is my 3rd closure conference, but I'm going to tell you the truth. No one in the real world gives a crap about closure. Oh, ouch, did that hurt? No one cares. They want their problem solved. And if closure or JavaScript or bump is the best thing that's going to solve my problem, that's what I need. So these are the skills. And I'm going to let that sit there for a minute, because I need you to assess, do you have any of these skills? None of this talks about programming. And this came out of the recent World Economic Forum last month. So this is not old data. We're talking about complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. Those are the skills for the 21st century workforce. And none of these skills can be easily replaced with current or future technologies. In the industrial, as I said, in the industrial age, it was about what you can do. In the information age, it's about what you know. And that's why I'm studying knowledge sharing within organizations, because that's very important. So when we talk about explicit knowledge, not explicit knowledge is that knowledge that can easily be documented, put in a manual. You can write documentation about your product or service. You can put a binder, that's what explicit knowledge is, easily shared from person, easily documented and shared. Explicit knowledge will be the thing that's automated. Tacit knowledge, on the other hand, is that stuff that's hard to, it's hard to codify. It's hard to capture. It's that thing that makes me do my job better than Billy doing his job, and we're doing the same job. Or even, it doesn't even have to be better, it's different. You know how you get something, and then you do it a few times, and you get a process in place, but you can't explain it to anybody else because this is your process? That's tacit knowledge. And what's happening is, business, that's the thing that will help us differentiate. We don't want to compete with Walmart and Amazon on price. What we want to do is differentiate. And it's the tacit knowledge that allows business owners, business leaders to differentiate, because that's the secret sauce to how they do stuff. So you can have 10 Trellos, but if our secret sauce is this, because people are so concerned somebody's going to steal my code base or whatever, no one can replicate what you do. But the problem is, we're not effectively getting that information from your head to your head. So that the organizational leaders are not being able to use that tacit knowledge to innovate, to scale. You can't scale one person. Programming is a skill. It's explicit knowledge, which has little value. It's a commodity. It's a commodity. But what we forget is a programmer's experience is the tacit knowledge. That's what you need to be leveraging. That's the secret sauce for you and the robot. You cannot code this. So conversations related to technology A versus technology B, and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Let me say, as I was saying this last night, it was a decision I made not to become a programmer because I recognize that I have some skill sets that many people in this industry don't have. But you guys still bore the hell out of me, of the conversations you're talking about. This is talking about a tool. What you need to do is leverage the tool user. So it's about how do you forget Clojure, Lisp, JavaScript, GitHub, Heroku. Those are tools, those are technologies. You as a programmer, how do you use those technologies to be efficient and effective at your job and to create intellectual capital that a business owner, a business leader would say, you know what? Robot, marry. Robot, marry. Robot will be cheaper, but Mary can do this. And so I want to go back to this. How many of you honestly can say that you have these skills, that you've actively tried to develop these skills? There you go, thank you. Thank you, exactly. And that's not enough hands up. It takes hard work to do, this is not, and that's another reason that just takes me way over there when they call these soft skills. Do you know what I have to deal with on a daily basis? Do you know how challenging it is for me not to just want to go up to somebody and punch them in the face? You know? You know, you get mansplained too. It's like, dude, I just said that. No, that's not what, nah! That's exactly what I said. Or I say something and someone says, oh, that was aggressive. No, not aggressive at all. The black woman in the front laughs at that because she knows exactly what we speak. We are always called aggressive, intimidating, defensive. No, I said no, and that's what I meant. And just because you come of privilege and you disagree, that does not mean that it invalidates what I have to say. These are the things we deal with every single day. And you want to call these soft skills? You need to develop these skills. Because without these skills, you have major problems. So what I want to get to is, I believe in providing, I never like to leave a stage without providing strategies, because that's just the educator in me. It's like you identify a problem, identify a challenge, and you try to come up with strategies for that. So, one of the strategies I thought about, and I can come up with tons of these. Seek opportunities to be on multidisciplinary teams. Go outside your comfort zone. I say this all the time. Could be my catchphrase. Learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. These, as you know, industry is changing so much. What's valid today is obsolete 2 years from now. Seek out these opportunities. If you don't have, because again, not many people raise their hands. This is your opportunity to develop that list of skills. So seek out to be on multidisciplinary teams. What means coming out of your coding space and heck, getting on a team that's dealing with a new HR policy. Something that has absolutely nothing to do with your job, but it provides value for you and everybody in your organization. Seek opportunities to mentor and be mentored. Again, this is where you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because what often it shows you, because I find people like, oh, I don't want to mentor people, they just don't get it. No, most times you're just really bad at explaining things. It's you, not them. You just suck at this, because everybody thinks they can teach. But dealing with learners is a whole different level. And that's one reason I have an issue with boot camps. When you have one curriculum, everybody doesn't learn the same way, everybody doesn't learn at the same pace, and most boot camps do not have people who understand learning theory, who've created the curriculums, and they also don't have processes in place for people who get behind or even get ahead. I'm a certified special needs teacher, so I had all kinds of abilities in my classroom. But could I get away with, oh yeah, no, that was my job. I had to make sure everybody got the information they could get, they were able to get at their ability. There were no excuses for that. So being able to mentor, you're gonna have somebody who's a newbie who does not, you are doing something and they don't understand why. And it's your job to recognize, to self-reflect that if you can't explain it, there's a problem. You need to question why you're using that tool or doing that thing. Because if you don't have a good reason, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it anymore. Seek these as opportunities to grow and learn. Because if you can, I always used to tell my students this all the time, if you can teach it to somebody else, that proves to me you know it. Seek feedback on skills other than programming. This is hard for a lot of people. Because you might, and I don't like, again, it's a whole bunch about me because I'm on the stage, so it is about me. I don't like terms like ninja. rock star, bleh, all those things. Because again, Google found out that those people on the team are not their most effective employees. There's a lot of ego going on, there's a lot of all kinds of stuff, but what it does is it closes people off. So when you are looking for feedback, that rock star or that ninja, if we're not talking about programming, you might get your feelings hurt. You might get your feelings hurt, but it's okay. It is okay. How often do you learn from success? Most people don't really, because they don't evaluate, they don't go back and say, this is what we did, this is how it worked, this is how we'll replicate. Most people learn their greatest lessons through pain. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. When you get embarrassed, when you've done something, when you've cost your company some money, you've got to be damn sure you're not to make that mistake again. And it's okay in this space because it has a reputation, it has a ethos, it has a DNA of mistakes, of getting feedback from failure, so use that. If you recognize it, take some stranger, somebody in your, well, not a stranger, somebody who's not afraid of you, somebody who doesn't feel that they would be jeopardized by being honest with you, and take them that list and have them evaluate, hey, you look up some certain things. This is what critical thinking is. How do I rate on this skill, on these skills? And be willing to take the feedback and be willing to do something about it. Offer the right documentation. Documentation is one of the most inclusive things you can do in a community. Because it's something that you have to think about the user and not yourself. And it also should be a living document which is updated often. Documentation should not be looked at as something that's done once or twice and it's done. Documentation is something that should be done constantly. And if you can't explain it and you get issues and pull requests and people like, I don't get this, you have a problem. You have an issue with effective communication at least in textual form. And maybe some other things. But writing documentation gives you the empathy of understanding, of putting yourself in the place of a user and how they're gonna, because I hate it when learning the Stack Overflow thing. Did you read the documentation? Yeah, and it didn't make sense. So I'm coming to you. There is no reason to be a jerk. If you wrote it for somebody other than yourself, then maybe I can understand it. Spend some time in the customer support department. Put on that special headphones, click that button, and hear and figure it out. Because I'll be that support person, I'll put you in the seat and I'll just go back like this. Yeah, I heard what they said. Because as programmers, you can be very arrogant. You think you wrote the code and I'm done with the code. I'm done with this thing. I love the whole thing. It works. It works on my computer. That's a problem in this industry. And so we need to spend time talking to and listening to our customers, hearing their pain points. Because when we say, I look at that list of, every year comes out, like the 2017 list of products that got a whole bunch of VC capital and failed. Because they sucked. They weren't businesses, they were just some product. The whole, oh my Lord, what is it? I can't think of the the one that has the place that starts with a B, has the places in New York, Bordellos. Yes, the portable bodegas. And they didn't, no one. Well, we did some, yeah, but you did it with white folks. Do you think these are, Lord have mercy. But I love the one with the pouch, and they show you just that was a whole bunch of 3D printing down the drain, because that machine was absolutely worthless at that point. You need to listen to your customers. Because guess what? Lunch and learns with non-programming staff. They have no freaking idea what you're doing. They were just like, oh my God. Oh my God, I don't know what they're doing. And I have to manage these fools and I don't know what they're doing. Think about this. Think about how many of you guys get recruiting emails for stuff that you're not even interested in, or they say they need 5 years of Swift, and we know Swift hasn't been around for 5 years. Because somebody just had some database, somebody gave, and they just, somebody HR, not their fault, they don't know what you do. Somebody gave them some parameters. That's what the whole college thing is, because we still say that that's the thing that make, when the majority of people who are learning the code are not learning from college programs, they're not going getting CS degrees. So it's about, have a lunch and learn. Sit down and let's talk about, and you don't have to get deep, you don't have to get real geeked out. Computational thinking. Just talk about what computational thinking is. Because they're doing it in their jobs, and they don't understand it because they're not using the same verbiage. But if you can talk about computational thinking and connect it to what you are doing, then they see that you built a bridge. You're not those weird guys, women, whatever, over there, who are costing us a whole bunch of money. And participate in their lunch and learns. You're not that freaking busy. You can take your little sandwich and go listen to them. Their code's not going anywhere. Participate in job shadowing or job swapping. Now that's a good one. I would love for some of you guys to go sit at the reception desk. You would lose your minds. You would not be able to handle it. Do you know how much crap receptionists take? That's the first line of defense at every company. They are the gatekeepers. They got to keep people out. They got to know who to let in, when to let them in. They get blamed for everything. Do that job for a day. Or just shadow somebody in another department because you might want to understand how these things work. Definitely go to marketing. See what they're doing. Go into sales. Because these are people who are spin masters. You're creating a product, and this is what it gets me when I'm talking about business. And I'm going to say this here. A product or a service is not a business. It's a product and a service. If you don't have underlying systems, processes, procedures, and policies in place that can scale, evolve, and recover, you do not have a business. This is why many VCs, people like, they just came in and they took those people company because all they have is a product or service. They didn't know how to make a business out of it. They don't have a business. They don't have a foundation to grow anything. And so if you want to be relevant, find out what's happening in marketing, sales, and HR. Think about that. Somebody with programming experience, if they can transition into HR, whoo, that's a bonus. Think about that. If you can go in there and look at their system and say, oh, that's not how that, and do it in a nice way. That's just not that, oh, we can come up with a very more efficient way to do that. Because your thinking is different than theirs. Think about the heroes you can be in that, and what that allow you to do. Speak at conferences about something other than your technology, people. We need people to talk about something other than technology. These are human-centric skills. And I know everybody at these conferences, they're like, oh, we got surveys back and they say they don't want beginner level things and da-da-da-da. Well, you've just eliminated, we're talking about inclusion and diversity, you've just eliminated a whole set of people when you do not have beginner content. When you have content that is only about technology. Because what you want to do is create a community. I would be, oh my, think about if you went, no, hold on, I'm gonna say if you went to, okay, not with your regular friends, but if you went to Thanksgiving dinner, right? And all you talked about, if you started talking about your technology, somebody at that table at some point would say, could you please shut up? You have to be more well-versed than just that. Also think about doing things, socializing in with non-programming staff. We do too much drinking. And drinking gets us in trouble. And I know we're in New Orleans, so I pray you don't act stupid tonight. But drinking impairs decision making. We don't need the research to see all of us at some point, well, I'm going to say all. Many of us in this room have been impaired by alcohol. We need to be doing things with our non-programming peers that do not involve alcohol, so that you can have a conversation, you can get to know people, they can get to know you, and volunteer to teach programming to someone from an underrepresented or marginalized group. I love how you have a panel or a conference thing and it's all white men, or they'll sprinkle in some white women in there and they think that's diverse. And let me say this, when we talk about women are making gains in tech, let us be clear, white women are making gains in tech. Everybody else is falling behind. So that's again the difference between underrepresented and marginalized. So find a church, an after-school program, your kids' friends, something, and teach them at least computational thinking, because they're going to need it. And if nothing else, share your excitement. I'm going to be honest, I had never heard these two books until last night. They were not even on my radar. But the excitement that you nerds had about these two books and the authors, oh my God. I have never seen people eating beignets this freaking excited. Oh, well, it was just like the second coming. I was like, what the hell is this? But as I talked to one of the authors, and I talked to somebody else, I recognized this is connected to the stuff I do as well. So yes, you don't have to get into the very technical parts of these books, but from what I understand, if you got through chapter 3 of this, people around you will have a better idea of not only seeing themselves as consumers of tech, but producers of tech. And then the whole point with this was, there were a whole bunch of non-technical people in the class. So share your excitement, share your enthusiasm, because when you guys start talking technology, you get really freaking bored. My face is glazed over. It's like, oh my God. And I'm sure when we play games at night and all that stuff, you guys really come out of your shells. People need to see that. So in closing, if you want to survive the robots, you have to be able to do something more than be a commodity and program. You have to see value in developing human-centric skills that not only help you, but help all of our organizations and communities.
Thank you so much. I don't know where to start. I have a few questions. If you have questions, start writing them down, passing them to the volunteers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first dictionary definition at this closure conference?
Oh, I have them in every presentation, because I want to make sure before we start, we're on the same terms.
But you nailed it, that's what we do. All right, so you talked about a difficulty with businesses scaling tacit knowledge. That the person is there, they know how to do all this stuff, and then they leave, or they're just one person, they can't do everything. So what would you recommend for businesses that want to scale that tacit?
And that's one reason my doctoral study is about mentoring. That's one great way of providing, okay, tacit knowledge, I use this term, comes from lived experience. So when I do something, just like you have a mom who has this recipe, right? She really is not following the recipe. The recipe is right there. But she has her thing going. She knows. And so the recipe and what she's doing is not the same. And for her to be able to tell you that is a challenge. So mentoring is a great way for organizational leaders to, because the problem is in the information economy, and I talk about this also, all of us can Google, you talk about definitions, all of us can Google and get the same definition. Or we can Google something. But how we our perspective and how we internalize and perceive that, it can have all different kinds of meanings. So if I Google dogs jumping, we can all get the same first hit, but how I respond or how I engage with that is different. So somebody can say, oh, that dog looks happy. Oh, that dog looks like it's on drugs. Oh, that kind of thing. So information is absolutely nothing. We are inundated with information. It's knowledge that we need. And knowledge is what tacit knowledge is. So you cannot, what a lot of organizations are doing is they're still using the old industrial industry thing of gathering tacit knowledge. That's why people have so many manuals, because explicit knowledge, because tacit knowledge is so hard to grasp, but it's the thing that makes you different. It's the thing that helps your business to just be so differentiated that it does not matter what they do. So again, mentoring, job shadowing, writing documentation, any way, videos, have someone tell their story. And that's another thing. That's one reason we need more people from underrepresented and marginalized communities, because we need to hear their perspectives. So if let's say, somebody's working on a part of the code, and they have an intuitive way to figure that out, if they can record it and talk about their process, that can be shared among the group.
Okay.
So you have to think about non-traditional ways, and they're labor intensive, and they cost money, and that's a big problem, because we don't want to spend our resources, and we have to.
Well, yeah, you talked, I think one of your first examples was going on YouTube to figure out how to set up a website. And
my current website is a YouTube website. I actually just changed some colors around.
But there's something about watching someone do it and explain what they're doing, as opposed to trying to read the manual, where you might understand all the technical little bits of everything going on in the manual, but you still don't know that some implicit, tacit knowledge about don't click that yet. You got to do this thing first,
and also it's about learning styles. I learn better by, even when I'm writing my doctoral study, if I need to read something that I've written, I will put it on text to speech so I can hear it while I read it, because I pick up there needs to be a comma there, that kind of thing. So some people can read a manual and it makes absolutely, some people just love books, but I can't learn like that from a book. So you also have to keep those things in mind, and that's so complex.
Do you think that's innate, or is it learned?
What?
The not being able to learn from a book?
I think just people have preferences.
Able to learn from
people have preferences. And also it can be forced upon you. I mean, think about certain things where you, like in school, oh my God, in schools, we are doing our babies a disservice. Okay, this is always my PSA. Okay, I don't like your kids at all. And I don't like you as parents of your kids. And this is why. Because what you've told your kids is how special they are. And they're not. No one thinks they're special outside your family. But what you're doing to them is creating a situation where they can't cope with real life. They have a hard time, so I'm never impressed with AP classes if they're taking AP or honors, because what they know how to do is pass a test. But if I put those same 4 questions in a different order, most of them can't figure it out. Or if I give them open-ended, they can't figure it out. And also you go in and rescue them too quickly. They need to fall, hurt themselves, make some mistakes before you come in and rescue them. And that is how they develop those skills we're talking about. They're not developing these skills because they aren't, in school now, most of us are either my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, so you knew you had to go to the library. The Dewey Decimal System, do you know how much critical thinking it took? I had $5. I had to go and pull these books off the shelf, reference books I couldn't take home, other books were too doggone heavy. So I had to make a critical thinking, okay, what pages, because I only have, and a copy is 25 cents. There was some thinking going on there. Our students do not,
that grade is on the line.
That's another issue. I never cared about my grades like that, because we talked about this last night. School is efficient for them to rank students because it's easier for the system when you can rank, and that's why all the testing, but we don't rank each other in real life. So it's an artificial environment. So anything you can do to shape your student up from so they can see what a real environment is, and not the artificial, we're ranked and we're tested and no one cares really where you went to college if you're not a doctor or something. Come on, no one cares. Go have fun, graduate, get out of there.
So would you say you should do the same in an interview? How would you look for these skills?
Oh, I don't like our, a whiteboard is not a real life, real work environment. No one's unless they're trying to figure out a problem, no one's going up to whiteboards and freaking out. It causes a lot of test anxiety, and this is also, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. One of the reasons that a lot of white men pass these, particularly young, is because they have the time to study for these. But when you're talking about people from underrepresented and marginalized communities, they usually have families, they have full-time jobs, they don't have time to study for a Google Whiteboard test. They don't have time, so they'll never do well with that. And it's just like the SAT and the ACT, they lean toward privilege. So you already come in at a mark. So I'm just saying, be aware of these things and have, interviews. Come on, let somebody do an interview like they would in a real job. Now, if you have them coding, you definitely should be paying them for that time. They should be doing nothing for free. But again, make it as real as possible. Because the fact that, and that's the problem, because you get these rock stars and these ninjas that can pass these tests, but then they go in there and they just screw up your whole community. Everybody's like, where did this fool come from? They don't play well with others, So it's bigger than that. I'd rather have a sit down, have a conversation with you, and talk about, hey, this is a problem we have. What kind of things would you think about in solving that? That would tell me something about how you process information, how you try to solve problems.
Okay, great. All right, this one's going to need some context from Abby. Yeah. It says, get started. Any ideas for addressing this?
Other side.
Oh, there's a whole, okay. Sorry about that. Well, I'll read this in a second. So Brian asks, so you mentioned one of the bullet points that you should have someone evaluate you on one of your skills. That's not non-programming skills. How would you go about that if they don't really know you and your skills? How would you ask them to evaluate?
Oh, there are people. That's what I was like. There are people around you who know you. There's somebody around you. Most people are just afraid to tell you. And so if it's something, if you have a significant other who you trust and who would not want to. You have to find someone who won't spare your feelings. This is just brutally honest, because what you want to do is grow from this. So if there's somebody in who you have lunch with that's not in your, it can be somebody in your department, as long as they're not evaluating you on your programming skills. So it's not about pulling some stranger off the street, but who do you, somebody you go to work with and you commute together, or they know you and you've had conversations. They've seen how you have conversations about things that are not about programming, and how you address maybe stress and stuff like that.
Yeah, like what happens when something goes wrong in the office.
Or you know what? I find that you gossip too much. You know, every time I look up, you're stirring stuff up. You know, they need to be able to. You need to hear that. We need to stop. These can't be sacred cows. You will be out. Bottom line, if you aren't doing this, you will be out of a job. So which one do you want to be? You want to be uncomfortable now or uncomfortable later? And that, to me, is what it boils out to.
I mean, what you're really saying is to keep our jobs, we need to become more human. And not become more robotic, because the robots are coming.
You have to figure out how you're going to differentiate.
Robot the
exactly.
robot.
You got to how to differentiate from Wilson. Is that his name? Wilson? Winston. Watson. Yes.
Watson.
You got to figure out how you're going to and Echo and all those, and Siri, because she does not. She's better. But that's about, she did not understand. I didn't think my accent was that bad, but good Lord. Siri and I would be fighting all the time. It's like, dang it, but Google understands me better. So it depends on what I need to find out. Because I'm a bad speller, so I'll start with Siri, then I say, screw Siri, she's not gonna get me. Let me go over here to Google.
All right, so you said that tacit knowledge is really important and it's all about experience. Does that create a catch-22 where you can't get hired because you don't have the experience? And how do you get the experience without getting hired?
Well, tacit knowledge is not about that kind of experience. It's about, tacit knowledge is about, it's not even just, because I want you to not think of it about the tacit knowledge of you as a programmer, of using the technology. I want you to think of yourself as the tacit knowledge of using the processes that make you decide, make the decision to use that technology in that way. That's transferable all over the place. So again, you're developing those skills. So it's not about the technology. So this is the technology. As Kim, I'm coming to this with my tacit knowledge. This is the problem I have to solve, because the bottom line is, as a programmer, you're being hired to solve problems. And if a computer can solve those problems better than you, there's a problem. So you want to say, okay, I have a problem. These are my technologies. I'm choosing this technology because I know it will, or I think I'm going to experiment with it because I think it can do this thing. That's your tacit knowledge. Why are you doing it? Why aren't you using this thing? If you use the technology, use it differently than somebody else. That's the tacit knowledge that you have. That's the thing you can take to another job, or say, I solve these, because that's what I solve these problems, and I use these tools, and this is the reason why I use these tools.
Right. So it's the kind of skill you can develop at any job. Right?
Yes.
It's just being with people. And,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so this is my question. That last one was the Abby question. So programming, people my age, I'm 36, so people my age, like programmers, you had to be a nerd, right? Because you had to have a computer at home. Not everyone had a computer. You had to
No, you had to have privilege. Let's start there.
Yes. You had to afford the computer, exactly. And I had my own, so that's another level of privilege, right? And I had the time to just sit there and work on it and learn stuff. And I find that those are the people who companies often look for. Is this nerd, right? Someone who's like the traditional idea of the hacker, right? It's just like super into programming and would do it for free if they would, if they could. But now we're kind of running out of those people. Like the industry is growing faster than that segment of people. And so we're trying new ways of bringing people in.
I'm going to challenge that.
Okay.
We're not running out of those people. Those people are not as valuable anymore.
Okay.
Those skills, you being a hacker is not as valuable to a company as somebody, again, you need to look at the research. The research shows that team with all these alpha people on there are not as productive as a team of B who everybody's not an expert. So there's people who are chugging it out, and they do well with PhDs and they're building algorithms and that kind of thing. So there are those people. But think of every business doesn't need an algorithm. A person who can build algorithm, they can take Clojure and do something with it. So we don't need that high level of people. What we need are people who have human-centric skills. Because those are the people who drive innovation. Those are the people who drive that allow you to be competitive. Those are the people who are always testing stuff. And so that's the issue. It's not that they're not enough. Everybody does not need a high-level thinker to create a technical business.
Right. And what I've noticed is people that I guess traditionally would be called newbies, like they've got a much richer perspective on the human side of things than the person who's been in the industry for 10 years and been programming, in their spare time since they were 13.
And we need to figure out a better bridge for those newbies to get the skills they need to become efficient and effective, productive people on teams.
And so is it? I don't know. Is there just like a minimum technology bar that they need to get over, and then once it's that, it's mostly human? Meaning, they know the language. No, because when we're talking about AI and machine learning, they need to be thinking about that all the way through. Thank you for this question, because this is where I'm passionate about. So if I trip over the stage, right, you assume that most people assume that there's something that I tripped over, right? Because we assume causality. We'll say, oh, so you'll come out like, what did she trip over? Not thinking, I could be drunk, I can have an inner ear infection. There could be various reasons that I tripped. So we automatically assign causation. Instead of digging, it's called organizational anthropology. Instead of digging in, doing the hard work to see where the root of these things are. So when we do that, we build, but you cannot have, please. And this is the problem when we talk about ethics. It's challenging, heavy resources to have these things up front. But the long-term effect is better than now going back and trying to fix things. So this was a conversation we had last night about C. About all the problems that C has, because now it's in everything. You can't go back and fix all of that. But had they been thinking about these, you don't want to wait. These are things you need to be thinking about at the beginning. Or now it's cheaper now.
Exactly. And that people are like, yes, exactly. It's a whole lot cheaper now. There is going to be labor and resource intensive up front, but the long-term effect is better. So as we're talking to newbies, we need to be talking to them. We do not want to create, we cannot create AI and machine learning that has, and I'm not even going to say unconscious bias, because it's just bias. To try to go back and take that out, the research is showing that that's damn near impossible. So let's deal with those things now up front. Let's have multidisciplinary teams who are challenging each other and saying, no, that will have some long-term effects. And so that's why you need to bring in the humanities into this and value people who have humanities degrees, because they're trained to think these long-term things. That's why I love history. We're trained to think in these long-term things. We're always trying to solve complex problems with simple solutions. And that gets us in trouble all the time. But now it's affecting a global population and we have no right to do that. Okay.
There's a few more questions here. So what about people who have innate communication problems?
Okay, so I actually,
Handicaps.
what?
Handicaps.
Yeah, disabilities. I actually work with a group of, I started a group called the Spectrum Codes, and you can find it on Twitter. And it's a group of people who are on an autism spectrum, who I'm working with other people to help them get jobs in tech. Because as a special needs teacher, it pissed me off to no end that if their ability was to greet at Walmart, I have no problem with that. But many of my students had greater ability, but because their case managers didn't understand anything about tech, their parents didn't understand anything about, no one in that space was talking about tech. They were in situations where they could not take care of a family if they wanted to. They could not be independent even if they want to. So one of my persons who are in this group, his name is Bennett. When we first met, he was stacking shelves at the grocery store. Now he is working in a technical support system, and he wants to do his first presentation on how do people with disabilities get, how do they maneuver this support system. I'm thinking, that's mind-blowing, because that's conversations that so many companies need to hear. And coming from a person with a disability who has a neurodiverse disability, he can educate so many people. And if he could start doing that as a consultant or whatever, think about how he could change his life. So I'm very, I do this every once a month we meet. One of them, she's advocating for people with disabilities in the workplace. She's going to be, I can't even say that, never mind, because it hasn't been, but she'll be doing her first presentation very soon. And so I advocate strongly. When we talk about inclusion and diversity, it's not just about gender and race. It's all the other ways that we exclude people. Be it by disability, be it by sexual orientation, be it by everything we do is in English. And I'm actually working with some people in El Salvador, helping them build a business. And we're building a platform that people can ask questions in whatever language they have, and it could be translated. Or having meetings when you have international staff and you're only concerned about your time zone. That is exclusionary. So there are all kinds of ways that we exclude people who we say we want to be a part of our teams.
How are we doing on time?
Over.
7 over.
Oh. Any last questions?
Thank you.